Grandma goes to church seeking God, but uncovers her pastor husband's unthinkable secret. The light poured through the stained glass windows of St. Mary's Church, casting colorful patterns on the wooden pews. Grandma Evelyn settled into her usual spot, her heart heavy and her mind swirling with memories. The air was thick with the scent of polished wood and the whispers of holy secrets. Today she craved peace, a sacred connection with God. But strange shadows danced at the edges of her thoughts, fluttering as unsettling whispers floated through the congregation. At 78, Evelyn was acquainted with the ache of loss. Her beloved Harold had been gone for years, his absence like a phantom limb. Yet she clung to hope, convinced that answers would come if she sought them out among the familiar faces. Even the hymns sung by the choir, sweet and soulful, felt tainted today. How could they drown out the echo of unanswered questions that clawed at her heart? As she sat there, enveloped by the warm embrace of her community, her gaze flickered to Pastor John, Harold's closest friend and the guiding light of the congregation. But was he really the man everyone believed him to be? A chill ran down her spine as she recalled all those whispered conversations between John and Harold. Conversations she had brushed off as mere camaraderie. But now they felt laden with a weight she could no longer ignore. The pastor's voice rang clear and steady, but all Evelyn could hear were hushed murmurs, wrapping around her like cold fingers. He knows more than he's telling. Each word strummed the chords of dread in her chest. An unthinkable secret. What kind of darkness lingers beneath the surface of her faith? She felt as though the very walls of the church were closing in, bearing witness to unspeakable truths. Just then, a young woman with wild hair burst into the sanctuary, breathless and wide-eyed. She clutched a faded photograph in trembling hands, and Evelyn could see the corners were worn, like memories too fragile to hold on to. The crowd fell silent, the hymn stuttering to a stop. Faces shifted, a sense of palpable tension echoing in the hushed gasp. What could this stranger want? Evelyn's heart raced. The photograph could tie the pieces together, could unravel the nostalgia and tear the veil off her past. Would it expose the foundation of lies? Disturbing the peace she fought to preserve. The warmth in the church felt starkly cold against the heat of her turmoil. Who are you, Evelyn? Finally found her voice, trembling yet determined. The murmurs surged around her. I'm here to tell you about Pastor John and your husband, the woman said, eyes fierce despite the tremors that betrayed her. Evelyn's stomach dropped. The storm brewed inside her, threatening to unravel everything she had believed. Was the path to redemption paved with the ruins of faith itself? Did she dare confront the secrets that could spiral into chaos? Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming up. And since you're here, smash that like button because it really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Evelyn's heart thundered in her chest as the young woman's words sank in. Pastor John and your husband. The room spun. Faces blurred as her focus zeroed in on the stranger's eyes. fierce but laced with a haunting sadness that twisted Evelyn's insides. "Who are you?" she pressed, her voice trembling. She felt the cold grip of fear and urgency intermingling, sparking. Something deep within her. The congregation leaned in, breaths held, sensing the gravity of the moment. "My name is Clara," the woman said, her voice rising above the murmurs. "I came here because I have to tell you. It's about Harold." A lump formed in Evelyn's throat. There was something familiar about Clara, though she couldn't quite place it. About Harold? The name hung in the air, heavy and bittersweet. "What do you mean?" Clara took a deep breath, steadying herself. The photograph she clutched trembled, ready to expose hidden truths. He was involved in something," she whispered, anguish crinkling her brow. The words were like shards of glass, tearing a hole in Evelyn's fragile sense of peace. "What are you saying?" Evelyn's voice was barely a whisper, betraying the well of fear bubbling inside her. The former warmth of the church now felt icy, suffocating. "I didn't want to believe it either," Clara said. "But Pastor John, he isn't who everyone thinks he is. He's been hiding so much from you." The words were daggers, and each one struck deeper. "What do you mean?" Evelyn demanded, her voice sharp. The congregation shifted uncomfortably, eyes flicking between the two women, unsure of what would happen next. Harold, he didn't just pass away. He was taken, forced into things he didn't want to be a part of. Clara's voice cracked, and Evelyn's hands balled into fists, anger bubbling up. Pastor John was in on it. Before she could finish, a loud crash echoed through the church as the double doors swung open, banging against the wall. The man in a leather jacket burst in, wild eyes scanning the crowd. He looked frantic, breathing heavily. "Clara, we have to go, now!" he shouted, panic woven into every syllable. The tension in the room heightened, bodies shifting uneasily. Who was this man? What was happening? Evelyn was frozen, heart racing. Everything she believed was unraveling before her like a tapestry pulled apart. The whispers of the congregation turned into gasps. Glances darted around, confusion brewing. The weight of secrets hung thick in the air. "Who are you?" Clara demanded, stepping forward protectively. "I'm here to help," the man replied, urgency in his voice. "But we don't have time to explain. They're coming for the truth, and for you." A hush fell over the congregation, the kind of silence that felt like the world had paused, holding its breath. Evelyn's mind spiraled, grappling with this new reality, the gravity of it all pulling her down. "Truth? What truth?" Evelyn's voice wavered, desperation creeping in. The man looked at her, eyes dark and serious, as if he held the very answers she sought. But before he could respond, the church bells began to toll, loud and foreboding, shaking the stained glass with their resonance. Suddenly, an explosion thundered from outside, echoing through the sacred space. The windows rattled violently, shards of glass raining down as screams erupted. The crowd surged backward, chaos spilling forth, and in that moment Evelyn felt the ground shift beneath her. "Get down," someone yelled, panic erupting around her. As Evelyn crouched, clutching the pew for support, she caught sight of Pastor John, his face pale, eyes wild with fear. The sudden confusion blurred the lines of trust and loyalty. Could he be part of this? Tremors of uncertainty coursed through her. Nothing was safe now. What was this truth everyone was hiding? And how deep did it run? The explosion had shattered more than just glass. It had fractured the facade of her life. Secrets were rushing in like floodwaters, threatening to drown her in lies. Evelyn could hardly breathe, the weight of revelation closing in. "What is happening?" she shouted above the din, voice raw with fear. The room spun again, and as the chaos erupted around her, she couldn't shake the feeling that everything, her husband, her faith, her community, was hanging by a thread. The man's gaze met hers, a glimmer of understanding. Sparkling in his eyes, "You have to find out, Evelyn, before it's too late." And suddenly, amidst the chaos, she realized there was no turning back. Evelyn's heart was a drum, pounding against her ribs, as she locked eyes with the man who had just burst into the church. The chaos around her faded, the screams and the shattering glass swallowed by the pounding in her ears. The truth, she thought, her mind racing. What truth? The man, still darting glances toward the doors, took a step toward Clara. "We have to leave, now." His voice was urgent, filled with raw fear. But it was Clara who broke the silence. "Not without telling her everything." Clara's voice stood strong, rising above the turmoil. "Evelyn deserves to know." The man shook his head, frustration bubbling over. "You don't understand the danger. We can't stay." Evelyn couldn't breathe. Panic washed over her, heavy and suffocating. What kind of danger? Who was this man? And how did he know her husband's name? "Enough," Pastor John shouted, stepping forward, his voice cracking. He raised his hands, begging for calm, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "Let's not panic. There are answers for all this." Evelyn turned to him, her jaw clenched. "Answers? Is that what you call it?" But before he could respond, a loud banging echoed from the back of the church. Thud, thud. The doors rattled violently, the sound sharp, like a knife slicing through tension. "Get the hell away from her!" someone shouted from the entrance. Evelyn spun around, her heart lurching as she saw another figure. A woman with a dark hood pulled tight around her face. Who are you?" Evelyn whispered, fear creeping up her spine. The woman stepped forward, her face illuminated by the flickering light from the stained glass. When she lowered the hood, Evelyn gasped. Laura? Her sister, long thought dead, stood there, eyes fierce and alive. "Evelyn, we have to leave, now," Laura urged, panting as though she had run miles. "It's all connected. Harold, the pastor, everything. They're coming for you." Everything crashed down around Evelyn. She couldn't process it. Her sister? Alive? But you were gone. "No time. Listen, Harold didn't die. He was taken by John's people. He's been hiding in plain sight, just like me." Laura's words were a jumbled mess, filled with urgency and terror. Gasps rippled through the congregation. Eyes widened. Evelyn felt like the ground beneath her was falling away. The shattered remnants of her life swirled around her, a dizzying dance of dark revelations. Pastor John's face twisted with a complex mix of fear and anger. "You shouldn't be here, Laura. You have no idea what you're risking." Evelyn took a step back, a chill settling over her like ice. "What are you talking about? What did you do to my husband? To Laura?" The words tumbled out, raw and hurt. A sudden crash echoed again, louder this time. Someone was forcing their way in. Panic surged. The congregation looked like deer caught in headlights, fear tangible in the air. "I'm not who you think I am," Pastor John blurted out, his face pale. "My name isn't even John." Evelyn froze. "What?" Before he could finish, the doors burst open. Shadows poured inside, figures cloaked in dark clothing, faces hidden. Their presence screamed danger. A wave of panic crashed over the crowd. "Get out now!" the man with Laura yelled, shoving Evelyn toward the exit. But her feet were glued to the floor, eyes locked on John. "What do you mean, your name isn't John?" "Please," he started, desperation lacing his voice. Before he could explain, chaos erupted. The hooded figures surged forward, hands reaching out, faces contorted in fury. Evelyn felt her heart drop. This can't be happening. Her mind spun. What did any of this mean? What truth lay hidden, obscured by layers of deception? Suddenly, Clara shouted over the chaos. "They're here to silence the truth. We need to move." Questions screamed through Evelyn's mind as the world twisted into chaos around her. She had begun to unravel a web of lies that threatened to pull her in. With one last look at the man she thought she could trust, she asked one desperate question. "John, who are you really?" But before he could answer, a dark figure lunged for her, and she was thrown into the storm. Everything around her spiraled out of control, and Evelyn realized there was no way out. Not without confronting the heart of the darkness that held her tightly in its grip. Evelyn felt the rush of chaos envelop her, a whirlpool of confusion and fear. The cloaked figures were closing in, their intentions a dark fog she couldn't pierce. The ground shook underfoot, her heart racing. As she stood paralyzed, then, without warning, a sharp pain tore through her side. A hand, cold and hard, gripped her waist, yanking her back into the fray. "Evelyn, we have to move." It was Clara, her voice urgent, slicing through the fog. But just as Evelyn started to turn, everything froze. The noise of the crowd faded to a hush. Her eyes shot to Pastor John, whose face was transformed, his fear replaced by something darker. In the midst of the chaos, his mouth twisted into a knowing smirk. "You shouldn't have come here, Laura," he said, locking eyes with the woman in the hood. "Laura?" Evelyn's mind reeled. "What? You know her?" "More than you know, Evelyn. More than you can even imagine." A jolt shot through Evelyn at the name. Laura. Her sister, thought. To be dead, now stood here, alive and desperate. But was she safe? Suddenly, Laura's eyes flickered, shifting from fear to determination as she stepped forward. "John, you'll pay for what you did. You can't hide this forever." A collective gasp swept through the sanctuary. The hooded figures shifted, eyes flaring with interest, as if sensing the tension threading tighter. Panic surged, and Evelyn felt the ground beneath her begin to crumble. "Enough!" John shouted, his voice booming like thunder. "You think the truth will save you? It will only seal your fate." Evelyn felt the weight of those words. Each syllable seemed to echo, spiraling inside her stomach. She stole a glance at Clara, who looked just as lost, but ready to fight. "We need to get out," Clara urged, tugging at Evelyn's. But before they could move, an explosion rocked the ground again. But this time, it came from the front of the church, shattering the main doors open. Dust and debris flew as a familiar face stepped into the shifting shadows. The last person she ever expected. "Stop! Everyone, just stop!" It was Harold, her Harold, his face bruised, clothes torn. Confusion ripped through the crowd, along with an undercurrent of disbelief. Evelyn's heart was a wild drum, filling her ears with the rush of blood. "Harold," she breathed, stepping forward, unable to tear her eyes away. "Evelyn, listen!" His voice cracked with urgency, hands raised as he moved through the chaos. "There's no time. I was forced to leave, to protect you. That's why." The room pulsed with energy, and every eye in the sanctuary was glued to him. The air vibrated with tension, confusion washing over the congregation in waves. "Lies!" John yelled, stepping back, fury replacing fear. "You think you can return and act like nothing has changed? I won't let you ruin everything." "Everything?" Harold's eyes blazed with intensity. "You think you control this? You're being played, John." Suddenly, the cloaked figures shifted. A ripple of anticipation ran through the crowd, and Evelyn felt the world tilt under her feet. "What do you mean?" "Silence!" John roared, but now his voice was shaky, fractured. In that moment, beneath the weight of Harold's truth, something changed. The cloaked figures turned toward John, as if realizing he was no longer in charge. Harold stepped closer to Evelyn, his gaze piercing through her confusion. "I'm sorry I disappeared. They took me, made me play their game. But I'm back now, and I—" Before he could finish, one of the cloaked figures lunged. With a swift motion, they grabbed Harold, pulling him back into the shadows. Horror washed over Evelyn, her breath hitching in her throat. "No! Stop!" She reached, stretching for Harold, but the grip on him was strong, powerful. Traitors or allies, she couldn't tell. The congregation erupted in chaos, bodies shifting, scrambling in fear. "Evelyn!" Harold's voice strained from the grasp. "You need to know the truth before it's too late." But an unyielding hand clamped over his mouth, silencing him. As Evelyn's heart sank, she felt the pull of darkness wrap tighter around them all. In that dizzying moment, Evelyn realized the truth was murkier than she could ever decipher. And she didn't know who to trust. "Evelyn!" John shouted, desperation creeping through his tone. "You have to choose! This is bigger than you can imagine!" The words rang in her ears, suffocating her. John's face twisted in desperation. Harold's eyes begged her to believe. Confusion throbbed in her chest. With everything swirling, one question echoed louder than the rest. Who was the real enemy? Evelyn's heart raced, feeling the weight of the world clamping down. The answer was buried somewhere deep, like a truth hidden in shadows. But which side was she supposed to be on? And at what cost? Evelyn's heart raced, caught between disbelief and the desperate need to understand. Harold stood before her, alive but bruised. Truth and lies tangled like vines around her mind. The chaos that enveloped the church felt almost surreal, but the urgency in Harold's eyes screamed otherwise. "Harold," she whispered, unable to grasp the reality of him. "How can this be?" "Evelyn, listen to me. They took me to keep you safe," he urged, his voice breaking through the clamor. "You have to believe me." "Believe you?" John snapped, his face twisting in anger. "You think this is about safety? You've put her in danger, Harold." Evelyn felt torn. She didn't know who to trust. Clara nudged her. Fierce determination etched across her face. "We have to go! Now!" But just as Evelyn took a step back, the cloaked figures lunged forward again. Panic rippled through the crowd. Hands gripped, pulling at garments, desperation writ large in frightened eyes. "Get away from him!" Clara shouted, shoving one of the hooded figures back. But the figure stumbled to the side, regaining balance with an eerie calm. In that split second, a loud, metallic clang sounded, slicing through the chaos. The ground trembled beneath them, a vibration that sent shockwaves through the air. Evelyn's stomach twisted. What was happening? Then came the blinding flash. Like lightning, it illuminated the entire church before plunging everything back into darkness. Screams echoed, mingling with gasps, as the congregation staggered. Confusion rippling through them. Evelyn blinked away the stars from her eyes, adrenaline pumping. But as the light returned, laughter twisted through the air, echoing around the sanctuary. It was harsh and chilling, like nails on a chalkboard. "Look at you all," a smooth voice rang out, disembodied and mocking. So naive, so easily played. From the shadows emerged a figure, tall, with a cruel smile that sent chills racing down Evelyn's spine. The figure stepped forward, revealing a face she recognized all too well. "Derek?" Evelyn gasped, her hands trembling. Derek, the man she had thought was dead. Her husband's closest friend, just like John. How could he be here, alive? "Yes, dear sister," Derek said, the velvet in his voice turning to venom. Funny how the grave holds no secrets when family meddles. A collective gasp swept through the church. Harold's face turned to stone, confusion and anger battling for dominance. "What are you doing here?" he hissed. "Gathering what's rightfully mine," Derek replied, his eyes glinting with malice. "And it seems I've interrupted your little reunion." Pity. Evelyn felt lightheaded. Not only was Derek alive, but it seemed he was at the center of all this chaos. The web of deceit grew more tangled as he tossed aside her understanding of family and loyalty. Before she could process it all, another explosion shook the building, this one inside. A hidden door burst open behind the altar. The congregation watched, frozen, as armed figures rushed in, moving with eerie precision. "Get the truth! Capture everyone!" one shouted. Chaos erupted anew, screams mingling with the thunder of footsteps charging forward. "No!" Evelyn cried out, grasping for clarity in the swirling ocean of confusion. But she felt only edges of despair creeping in. Harold pushed forward. "Stay with me, Evelyn!" he yelled, reaching for her. But Derek was faster. He grabbed Evelyn's arm, pulling her toward him. "She's coming with me," he said, voice low and threatening, face close. Enough for her to see the darkness dwelling behind his eyes. "Evelyn, don't!" Harold shouted, desperation bleeding through his words. "This isn't who you are!" Derek twisted her around, shielding her from the wild storm of chaos erupting in the room. She felt trapped, panic rising again. What did he want? "Trust your blood, sister," Derek said, his voice smooth like silk. But the edge was cold. "You've been lied to about everything." Before Evelyn could respond, a booming voice rang through the chaos, halting everyone in their tracks. "Stop! Everyone, just stop!" It was Clara, her gaze fierce. "What are you hiding, Derek? What truth are you clutching so tightly?" The room held its breath. Evelyn felt the weight of questions pressing upon her. Was Derek right? Had she been blind to so much? A rush of uncertainty surged within her. "I'm the one telling the truth, and you're all too blind to see it," Derek smirked, looking over the crowd. Evelyn's chest tightened at the revelation settling in. One question throbbed like an open wound. What had her life truly been based on? Was her world no more than an illusion? The church remained still, the tension thick as dread. Wrapped in his grip, she glanced back at Harold and felt a fracture inside her. With the truth edging closer, an even bigger question loomed, hanging in the air like a dark cloud. Would the truth set them free or destroy everything? Evelyn's heart raced, caught in a whirlwind of disbelief. Derek, a ghost from her past, stood there, tainted with the harsh truth of betrayal. His presence twisted everything she thought she knew. She looked from him to Harold, whose face tightened with alarm. "Evelyn, don't listen to him," Harold shouted, desperation lacing his voice. But as the whispers of fear floated through the congregation, Evelyn felt her resolve falter. "You're alive?" she managed to gasp, her voice trembling. "Yes, dear sister," Barak sneered, taking a step closer, his dark allure magnetic yet terrifying. "Interesting how life surprises us. I'm the one who brought you your precious Harold back after all." Evelyn felt her heart skip. Questions twisted in her mind like a tangled thread. Why would Derek do that? What did he want from her? "Get your hands off her, Derek!" Clara yelled, stepping forward with fierce defiance. But Derek ignored her, his eyes fixed on Evelyn like a predator eyeing its prey. "You have to choose, Evelyn," he said, his tone low and dangerous. "The truth or the lie. You can't have both." Suddenly, the air shifted like a storm brewing. The cloaked figures shifted, their focus now on Derek, seemingly riveted by his declaration. A hush swept through the room. "Derek, did you have Harold taken?" Harold's voice shot through the silence, accusation heavy in his words. Derek smiled that cold smile, devoid of warmth. "Oh, Harold, you were too blind to see the bigger picture. I didn't take you. I saved you from the mess you created." A wave of disbelief washed over Evelyn. What did that mean? Had Harold really been involved in something dark? The crowd buzzed nervously, eyes darting between them, sensing a crack in the facade. But before anyone could process what was happening, another explosion rocked the church. This time from the main doors. Dust and debris rained down, scattering the congregation into chaos. "Protect her!" someone screamed. Evelyn's breath hitched as two cloaked figures charged at Derek, their intents clear and dangerous. Clara's hand clutched Evelyn's tightly, pulling her back toward Harold, whose face was a mask of fury and determination. "Harold, are you with me?" Clara yelled, her voice strained. "Yes, always," he shouted, locking eyes with Evelyn, a silent promise etched in his gaze. "Stay together," Laura urged, her voice strong, but the fear lurking just beneath the surface caught them all. Then the ground shook once again, stronger this time. The room vibrated with the force of something unseen, and suddenly the heavy chandelier above then began to sway. Evelyn felt a sharp drop in her stomach. "Get down!" John's voice rang out, breaking through the panic. Just as they all crouched low, the chandelier plummeted, crashing down in a spray of glass and old wood. Screens erupted, and chaos enveloped them all. Evelyn threw herself to the floor, Clara's hand tightening around her wrist. Everything was a blur of movement and confusion. She could feel the weight of decisions pressing down on her, the weight of secrets unraveling. Would they live to find out the truth? But the chaos stilled for a heartbeat as a blinding light flooded the room. Evelyn squeezed her eyes shut, disoriented by the dazzling brightness. When she opened them, several cloaked figures stood before Derek, their faces hidden. One pushed back their hood. It was Mia, the woman who had once been the church secretary, revered and loved. "Mia?" Evelyn gasped, her heart pounding. "What are you doing here?" Mia smirked, exposing a hidden agenda. "Oh, sweet Evelyn, you're deeper in this than you realize. Did you ever wonder why I was so close to Harold?" Evelyn felt the ground slip beneath her again. "What do you mean? I'm not just the secretary. I'm also part of this family, and a core member of the truth you've been avoiding." The congregation blinked in shock, whispers weaving through the crowd. Evelyn's world spun wildly. Betrayal tainted every shadow in the church, creeping into her heart. "Family?" she mouthed, horrified. "What are you talking about?" "Your precious truth isn't just a secret," Mia continued, her voice smooth. "It's a legacy, and it's yours to carry. The question is, are you ready?" Evelyn's head spun. There was something deeper, something buried under layers of lies and loyalty. Who was really family? The revelation felt cold and sharp. Just as she was about to confront Mia, more figures rushed in from the back, armed and aggressive. The air thickened with tension. A divide was forming. "Get 'em!" someone shouted. Suddenly, the entire congregation scrambled, chaos breaking loose once more. Evelyn's heart thundered in her chest. In that fear-filled moment, a terrible truth settled like a heavy weight in her gut. The specter of betrayal loomed larger than she ever imagined. With her world unraveling, she heard the last words of Mia echoing in her ears. "Choose wisely, Evelyn. The truth will always find a way." And in the mayhem, surrounded by chaos and uncertainty, Evelyn dared to wonder, what truth had she been blind to all along? Evelyn felt the weight of everything around her. The chaos, the noise, the accusations. Derek's presence twisted in her gut, a mix of dread and disbelief. The congregation squirmed, eyes darting back and forth like marbles spilled from a jar. Something stirred beneath her skin, a sense of danger, pulling her closer to the edge of fear. "Choose wisely, Evelyn." "The truth will always find a way," Mia echoed, and those words cut through the noise, sharp and painful. It felt as though the air had thickened, constricting around her, squeezing out any ounce of hope. "Get away from her!" Harold shouted, trying to break through the throng of bodies moving closer. But the cloaked figures were relentless. Clara gripped Evelyn's hand tighter, determination etched across her features. But Evelyn felt that resolve slipping as Derek's gaze bored into her. "Evelyn," Derek's smirk shifted to something more sinister. "You have a choice to make. We can end this charade right now. You could be standing alongside your real family." "Real family?" The words stumbled out as Evelyn's eyes flicked toward Harold, confusion blending with fear. "What do you mean?" Derek leaned closer, his voice lowering. "Oh, I've waited so long for this moment. Your husband isn't who you think he is, and neither am I." At that very moment, the ground shook violently beneath them. The chandeliers rattled, and dust cascaded from the rafters. Gasps filled the air, and a loud bang shattered the tense silence, followed by the sound of glass shattering. Just then, the front door swung open with a force that seemed to rattle the very foundation of St. Mary's itself. Light spilled in, but it wasn't the warm glow of hope. It was an overwhelming, bright light that blinded her momentarily. As she squinted, a silhouette emerged, large and looming against the glare. A rush of figures followed, spilling through the doorway like dark shadows against the sun. Panic surged again, the crowd breaking apart like a wave crashing against a cliff. "Get back!" Clara yelled, pulling Evelyn protectively. But it was too late. An icy voice broke through the alarm. "Evelyn!" The voice wrapped around her, sending chills racing down her spine. It was Megan, her beloved granddaughter. "Megan?" Evelyn gasped, eyes wide. "What are you doing here?" But Megan didn't respond to her. Instead, she looked straight at Derek, anger flashing in her eyes. You're the one who's been pulling the strings. What are you talking about?" Derek's smile faded, replaced with a look of fury. And then, in a heartbeat, everything changed. Megan reached into her bag and pulled out a device, raising it high above her head. "You think you control this family? You're wrong." A bright flash emanated from the device, and in an instant, reality wobbled around them, like a dream unraveling. Evelyn gasped, her heart racing as the world warped, colors swirling and distorting. The cloaked figures halted, uncertainty flashing across their hidden faces. Derek's face turned to shock. "What did you do?" And then it happened. Colors erupted like fireworks, illuminating the church in breathtaking brilliance. The walls fell away as memories, whispers, secrets, and buried truths exploded into view. In an instant, everything Evelyn believed in began to unravel, layers peeling back to reveal something unimaginable. "Time for the truth to finally come out," Megan shouted, her voice steady and shining with defiance. The air crackled with energy, the congregation frozen in a tableau of disbelief as the light consumed them all. Evelyn's breath caught, her eyes wide with realization. In that moment, every lie, every carefully crafted deception cascaded like an avalanche, burying any sense of normalcy. The truth danced like shadows in the bright light, teetering on the edge of revelation. Evelyn felt her chest tighten, her mind numb. Who was she in this new truth? The boundaries of loyalty and love blurred into one chaotic mass. And as the light dimmed and silence enveloped them, Evelyn stood, quaking, caught in a cyclone of emotions. "Megan, what have you done?" But even she could feel the answer, swirling around her, just out of reach, leaving her desperate for clarity in the wreckage of her faith and family. What did it all mean? What had been hidden? The truth of who she was and who they all were lay at her feet, unraveling as she teetered on the edge of an unthinkable chasm. Evelyn felt the weight of everything around her, the chaos, the noise, the accusations. Derek's presence twisted in her gut, a mix of dread and disbelief. The congregation squirmed, eyes darting back and forth, like marbles spilled from a jar. Something stirred beneath her skin, a sense of danger pulling her closer. To the edge of fear. "Choose wisely, Evelyn. The truth will always find a way," Mia echoed, and those words cut through the noise, sharp and painful. It felt as though the air had thickened, constricting around her, squeezing out any ounce of hope. "Get away from her!" Harold shouted, trying to break through the throng of bodies moving closer. But the cloaked figures were relentless. Clara gripped Evelyn's hand tighter, determination etched across her features. But Evelyn felt that resolve slipping as Derek's gaze bore into her. "Evelyn!" Derek's smirk shifted to something more sinister. "You have a choice to make. We can end this charade right now. You could be standing alongside your real family." "Real family?" The words stumbled out as Evelyn's eyes flicked toward Harold, confusion blending with fear. "What do you mean?" Derek leaned closer, his voice lowering. "I've waited so long for this moment. Your husband isn't who you think he is, and neither am I." At that very moment, the ground shook violently beneath them. The chandeliers rattled, and dust cascaded from the rafters. Gasps filled the air, and a loud bang shattered the tense silence, followed by the sound of glass shattering. Suddenly, the front doors swung open with a force that rattled the very foundation of St. Mary's. Light spilled in, blinding them momentarily. A silhouette emerged, massive and looming against the glare. A rush of figures followed, pouring into the sanctuary like shadows spilling from the night. Panic surged again, the crowd breaking apart like a wave crashing against a cliff. "Get back," Clara yelled, pulling Evelyn protectively. But it was too late. An icy voice broke through the alarm. "Evelyn!" The voice wrapped around her, sending chills racing down her spine. It was Megan, her beloved granddaughter. "Megan?" Evelyn gasped, eyes wide. "What are you doing here?" But Megan didn't respond. Instead, she looked straight at Derek, anger flashing in her eyes. You're the one who's been pulling the strings." "What are you talking about?" Derek demanded, his smile fading to a scowl. Then, in a heartbeat, everything changed. Megan reached into her bag, pulling out a device that glowed ominously. "You think you control this family? You're wrong." A bright flash burst from the device, engulfing the room in a blinding light. For a moment, time felt distorted, the very fabric of reality trembling. Evelyn blinked as chaos erupted. Around her again, cloaked figures pausing, expressions frozen, caught between fear and astonishment. "Megan, what did you do?" Evelyn shouted above the noise, panic flooding her system. But as the brilliance faded, the chaos shifted. Instead of a simple explosion, the remaining figures collapsed to the floor, their hoods falling away, revealing faces Evelyn knew all too well. Faces of her friends and family who had also been thought lost, hidden in plain sight. Just like Harold and Laura, then it hit her. A wave of realization crashed over her. "What the— No, it can't be." There stood Lucy, her childhood friend, with a smirk that twisted her heart. "Surprise, Evelyn? Did you really think they'd let you have this family free and clear? We've all been waiting for the right moment." "What do you mean? You were all—" Evelyn's voice trailed off, disbelief swirling. "All of you?" "Right under your nose," Derek sneered, "and it's not what you think. You were the key to everything." Suddenly, the collective gasp from the congregation morphed into murmurings of suspicion and confusion. Was it possible? Were they all in on it together? The tightly woven fabric of love and trust began to unravel, revealing something far more sinister. "Your choices have made you blind, Evelyn," Mia said, her tone draped in malice. "We've all played our parts perfectly, but it's time for the truth to emerge, and you're the last piece of the puzzle." Evelyn's heart sank like a stone, the realization stifling her breath. Everything she believed was built on deception after deceit, tangled up in familial love and betrayal. "Family?" she croaked, her voice raw with emotion. This is who you are?" "We're your real family," Lucy replied, stepping closer. "And it's time for you to embrace your destiny." Evelyn swayed, as if the ground had pulled from under her feet. She felt dizzy. Everything she knew began to shimmer and fade like a mirage. "Choose wisely, just like Derek said," Mia hissed, hatred simmering in her eyes. "Will you embrace the truth, or cling to the lies you thought were love?" Evelyn blinked, her mind racing as new layers of betrayal unfolded. Could this be the final choice? What had she lost? And amidst the chaos of her reality crumbling, one question echoed louder than the rest. What truth awaited her if she dared to reach for it? Evelyn felt the weight of everything around her, the chaos, the noise, the accusations. Derek's presence twisted in her gut, a mix of dread and disbelief. The congregation squirmed, eyes darting back and forth like marbles spilled from a jar. Something stirred beneath her skin, a sense of danger pulling her closer to the edge of fear. "Choose wisely, Evelyn. The truth will always find a way," Mia echoed, and those words cut through the noise, sharp and painful. It felt as though the air had thickened, constricting around her, squeezing out any ounce of hope. "Get away from her!" Harold shouted, trying to break through the throng of bodies moving closer. But the cloaked figures were relentless. Clara gripped Evelyn's hand tighter, determination etched across her features. But Evelyn felt that resolve slipping as Derek's gaze bore into. "Evelyn?" Derek's smirk shifted to something more sinister. "You have a choice to make. We can end this charade right now. You could be standing alongside your real family." "Real family?" The words stumbled out as Evelyn's eyes flicked toward Harold, confusion blending with fear. "What do you mean?" Derek leaned closer, his voice lowering. "Oh, I've waited so long for this moment. Your husband isn't who you think he is, and neither am I." At that very moment, the ground shook violently beneath them. The chandeliers rattled and dust cascaded from the rafters. Gasps filled the air, and a loud bang shattered the tense silence, followed by the sound of glass shattering. Suddenly, the front doors swung open with a force that rattled the very foundation of St. Mary's. Light spilled in, blinding them momentarily. A silhouette emerged, massive and looming against the glare. A rush of figures followed, pouring into the sanctuary like shadows spilling from the night. Panic surged again, the crowd breaking apart like a wave crashing against a cliff. "Get back!" Clara yelled, pulling Evelyn protectively. But it was too late. An icy voice broke through the alarm. "Evelyn!" The voice wrapped around her, sending chills racing down her spine. It was Megan, her beloved granddaughter. "Megan?" Evelyn gasped, eyes wide. "What are you doing here?" But Megan didn't respond. Instead, she looked straight at Derek, anger flashing in her eyes. You're the one who's been pulling the strings." "What are you talking about?" Derek demanded, his smile fading to a scowl. Then, in a heartbeat, everything changed. Megan reached into her bag, pulling out a device that glowed ominously. "You think you control this family? You're wrong." A bright flash burst from the device. engulfing the room in a blinding light. For a moment, time felt distorted, the very fabric of reality trembling. Evelyn blinked as chaos erupted around her again. Cloaked figures pausing, expressions frozen, caught between fear and astonishment. "Megan, what did you do?" Evelyn shouted above the noise, panic flooding her system. But as the brilliance faded, the chaos shifted. Instead of a simple explosion, the remaining figures collapsed to the floor, their hoods falling away, revealing faces Evelyn knew all too well. Faces of her friends and family who had also been thought lost, hidden in plain sight, just like Harold and Laura. Then it hit her. A wave of realization crashed over her. What the? No, it can't be! There stood Lucy, her childhood friend, with a smirk that twisted her heart. "Surprise, Evelyn! Did you really think they'd let you have this family free and clear?" "We've all been waiting for the right moment." "What do you mean? You were all—" Evelyn's voice trailed off, disbelief swirling. "All of you?" "Right under your nose," Derek sneered. "And it's not what you think. You were the key to everything." Suddenly, the collective gasp from the congregation morphed into murmurings of suspicion and confusion. Was it possible? Were they all in on it together? The tightly woven fabric of love and trust began to unravel, revealing something far more sinister. "Your choices have made you blind, Evelyn," Mia said, her tone draped in malice. "We've all played our parts perfectly, but it's time for the truth to emerge, and you're the last piece of the puzzle." Evelyn's heart sank like a stone, the realization stifling her breath. Everything she believed was built on deception after deceit, tangled up in familial love and betrayal. "Family?" she croaked, her voice raw with emotion. This is who you are?" "We're your real family," Lucy replied, stepping closer, "and it's time for you to embrace your destiny." Evelyn swayed, as if the ground had pulled from under her feet. She felt dizzy. Everything she knew began to shimmer and fade like a mirage. "Choose wisely, just like Derek said," Mia hissed, hatred simmering in her eyes. "Will you embrace the truth or cling to the lies you thought were love?" Evelyn blinked, her mind racing as new layers of betrayal unfolded. Could this be the final choice? What had she lost? And amidst the chaos of her reality crumbling, one question echoed louder than the rest. What truth awaited her if she dared to reach for it? Just then, amidst the tension, the lights flickered violently. The air grew thick, charged with an energy that made her skin crawl. All at once, a stark scream tore through the room, slicing the tension like a knife. "No, you can't do this." A voice cried out. It was Clara. Evelyn's heart halted, the confusion clearing just enough for her to see Clara struggling against two hooded figures. They pulled her backward, but Clara's fierce eyes never left Evelyn's. "Evelyn, listen to me," she shouted. "There's more. The truth is worse." "Than you think." Before Clara could finish, a loud crack erupted that echoed through the church like thunder. The shadows twisted in response, and Derek stepped forward with a knowing look. It's time for the real truth to unfold. With a sudden sweep, he activated the device Megan held. An eerie silence blanketed the congregation, and the floor beneath Evelyn trembled, a dark chasm appearing at their feet. The light glowed brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat, and in one blinding flash, the truth rushed forward. Whisper echoed, "You were never meant to find out." And everything went dark. Evelyn felt the cold grip of darkness dissolve, replaced by a sharp, thundering pulse of light. As she blinked against the brightness, clarity began to seep in. Her mind swirled with echoes of deception, with faces of those she once loved and trusted, blending with shadows of betrayal. She stood in a warped version of reality, her heart racing. "Evelyn!" Megan's voice broke through, desperation lacing her tone. "You have to fight this. The truth is your weapon." Truth, the very essence of which had been twisted like the threads of a spider's web, catching her in its sticky embrace. Evelyn's heart thundered, her chest tightening, as the memories crashed over her like waves. Memories of laughter, warm embraces, and secrets that ran deeper than imagined. "Enough!" Clara yelled, grappling with the figures hovering over them. "We won't let this continue!" As the cacophony subsided, Evelyn pushed her way through the disarray, eyes blazing with determination. "What are you all hiding?" she demanded, looking at each face now illuminated in the harsh light. Derek stepped forward, eyes glinting with malicious intent. "You really think you can unravel all this, Evelyn? You're simply a pawn in a game much bigger than yourself." "Maybe," Evelyn replied, her voice steady, "but I'm a pawn who's ready to become a queen." Lightning surged through her, a newfound strength igniting inside her chest. "Step back!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. The tension shifted, and the cloaked figures hesitated. Megan stepped beside her, their bond solidifying. "Together, we've got this. The truth won't drown in silence." With a swift notion, Evelyn held her hand out towards the device, channeling every ounce of courage she could muster. "Let it shine. Let it reveal the truth." She pressed the button. Light exploded from the device, enveloping them all in a blinding brilliance that reflected their deepest fears and hopes. Evelyn's heart raced. It felt as though she could hear the truth itself, screaming to be set free. The light pierced through the fabric of deceptive reality, exposing secrets hidden behind masks. The hushed conspiracy unraveling like a frayed rope. The congregation gasped, faces shifting from fear to awe as their hidden truths spilled forth, intertwining their fates. "You think you can control this moment?" Derek sneered. But for the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes as the truth illuminated the darkness around them. "Yes," Evelyn exclaimed, "because I choose to." She felt it, a pulse of hope coursing through her veins. The weight of betrayal lessened as clarity washed over them like a cleansing tide, revealing their intentions and the darkness that had lurked unseen. The cloaked figures began to retreat, their power waning. Evelyn tightened her grip on Megan's hand. "We will not be silenced. This ends now." With one last surge of energy, they directed the light toward Derek and Mia, who now stood vulnerable, their masks of power shattered. The congregation watched, breathing as one. "Enough with the deceit. We choose truth over lies." Clara's voice soared, rallying the others to join in. As the light flooded the church, the oppressive shadows dispersed, leaving behind only remnants of fear and whispers of unspoken truths. Evelyn felt the tension break, as if the air itself had transformed. Derek's smirk faded into disbelief, and Mia collapsed to her knees, defeated. Silence settled over them like a comforting blanket. Evelyn stepped forward, her heart racing but steady. "We all have our truths to face. It's time to embrace them, together." In that moment, tears streamed down faces, not as symbols of sorrow, but of hope, love, and new beginnings. Evelyn exhaled softly, catching Harold's eye, And for the first time, she saw sincerity reflected back at her. The congregation united in a wave of emotional release, murmurs of apologies and forgiveness filling the air. Evelyn knew they could rebuild from these broken pieces. The scars would remain, but they'd learned invaluable lessons. Along the way, as the dust settled, she felt a warmth envelop her. Her family reunited, her heart full. Hope flourished like blossoms amidst the wreckage, illuminating their future. And as they walked out together, hand in hand, the church no longer felt like a cage, but a sacred space for healing and rebirth. Now it's your turn. Don't wait another second. You have to subscribe right now to catch every thrilling exclusive story. Smash that like button to show your support and feed the algorithm.